What if the guy America trusted to be the funny, self-aware Hollywood husband was actually doing things behind closed doors that would make your jaw drop? Not rumors. Not tabloid gossip. Real moments. Caught on camera. Said out loud. In public. And somehow, people still looked the other way. Today, we're talking about DAX SHEPARD. And by the end of this video, you're going to see him very differently. Let's go. DAX SHEPARD built his entire brand on being the good one. The reformed bad boy. The guy who admitted his mistakes, went to therapy, talked openly about addiction, and married one of the most beloved women in Hollywood, KRISTEN. The couple became relationship goals for millions of people. Podcast interviews. Magazine covers. Sweet Instagram posts. They seemed untouchable. But here's the thing about a carefully built image. The cracks always show up eventually. And when they do, they show up hard. Because what we started to notice wasn't one bad moment. It was a pattern. A slow, creeping pattern of behavior that when you line it all up together, it tells a very different story than the one DAX wanted you to believe. It started with his podcast, Armchair Expert. If you've never listened to it, DAX basically sits down with celebrities and has these long, wandering conversations. And on the surface, it sounds great. Honest. Vulnerable. Real. But listeners started noticing something. DAX had a habit of dominating conversations in a way that felt less like curiosity and more like control. He wasn't just asking questions. He was steering. He was correcting. He was making sure the spotlight always swung back to him. And then came the interviews where he talked about KRISTEN. Now, couples joke about each other. That's normal. But there's a line between playful teasing and something that makes you uncomfortable as a viewer. DAX crossed that line more than once. He would make comments about KRISTEN's body, her emotions, her reactions, in ways that felt less like affection and more like subtle humiliation dressed up as humor. DAX and KRISTEN have 2 daughters. And like many celebrity parents, they've been pretty open about their family life. But there were moments, specific moments, where DAX's behavior around his own children raised serious eyebrows. There was a resurfaced clip that went viral. In it, DAX is talking about one of his daughters in a way that felt deeply inappropriate for a father to be saying publicly about his child. He was laughing, treating it like an anecdote, like a funny story to share on a platform with millions of listeners. But the audience reaction was not laughter. It was discomfort. It was people hitting pause and saying, wait, did he just say that? About his daughter? Out loud? Now, you might be wondering, what exactly did he say? And here's where it gets complicated. Because DAX is smart. He always wraps these moments in enough plausible deniability that he can call it a misunderstanding if pushed. He's a comedian. He's self-deprecating. He's just being honest. But there's a difference between honesty and using your child as content for your own entertainment. There's a difference between being real and being reckless with someone who can't consent to being talked about that way. His daughter didn't choose to be on that podcast. She didn't agree to be part of that story. And that matters. Now here's where it gets really layered. Because KRISTEN is not a pushover. She is sharp, funny, outspoken, and very capable of standing up for herself. Which makes it even more strange when you watch certain interviews and see her go quiet. Or laugh awkwardly. Or redirect the conversation when DAX says something that seems to land wrong. There were moments, and again, these are public moments, things you can go watch yourself, where DAX made statements about their relationship that sounded alarming when taken out of the comfortable celebrity interview packaging. He talked openly about arguments they had. About things KRISTEN did that frustrated him. About decisions she made that he disagreed with. And on the surface, again, couples talk about this stuff. Transparency is healthy. But there's a version of transparency that respects your partner. And there's a version that uses your platform to paint a picture of them that they might not have agreed to. One of those builds trust. The other chips away at someone's public image, slowly, one interview at a time. People close to the couple, not named sources, not tabloids, but observable behavior in public settings, started noting that KRISTEN seemed different in certain spaces where DAX was leading the conversation versus spaces where she was alone. That difference matters. It tells a story without anyone having to say a word. In 2021, Dax admitted he had relapsed on opioids after 16 years of sobriety. And look, addiction is a disease. Relapse happens. That part of the story deserves compassion. But the way Dax handled the aftermath of that reveal and the way he framed KRISTEN's role in it raised new questions. He talked about how she found out, how she reacted. He told that story publicly. He made it part of his content. And people had to ask, did KRISTEN want this to be public? Was this her story to tell too? Or was it his story, in which she just happened to be a major character, and she had no say in how it was shared? Because there's something quietly controlling about that. About being the one who holds the microphone and gets to decide what version of the relationship the world sees. About being the narrator of someone else's pain. KRISTEN has been gracious about it publicly. But grace and comfort are not the same thing. Here's what I want you to notice. None of these things, individually, would trend. One awkward comment. One overshared story. One weird interview moment. By itself, people would scroll past it. But together, they form something. A shape. A pattern of a man who is very good at managing perception while doing things that, if any of us did them in our own relationships or as parents, people would be deeply concerned. The comments about KRISTEN that toe the line between teasing and diminishing. The stories about his daughter that prioritize his entertainment over her dignity. The way he controls the narrative of his own family's struggles. The way he always comes out looking like the wise, self-aware one who learned his lesson. That's not an accident. That's a skill. And it's worth asking who that skill serves.